Hey everybody, it's me, Dixie Longate, star of Dixie's Tupperware Party and the brand new streaming show, Dixie's Happy Hour. If you want to learn more, watch this video. I'll make sure to make you giggle. I first knew about Tupperware when I was a little, like my mama used to have Tupperware parties all the time when I was little, but I didn't think much of it. You know, all the ladies would come over and they'd lock themselves in a room. And I just thought it was the lesbian recruitment drive. But it turns out they were talking about food storage, which is very exciting and everything. And my mama used to give me one of them little Tupperware balls that the kids would play with. And I'd have the best time with that ball in my hand, you know, dreaming of what things will be like when I'm older. And so I knew about it, but it wasn't until much later when I was a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to go to a Tupperware party? And I was like, okay, let's do it. Because I needed some plastic bowls, you know, and I'd gotten out of prison and my parole officer's adorable lesbian. She said, you need a job in order to get your kids back. So when I went to this Tupperware party for this lady to kind of get me started, I was like, oh, this is not something I'm going to do because it's for old ladies. But then I saw these ladies drinking and I was like, oh, this is a job for me. If I can drink while I'm working, I'm like, this is something I'm going to stick with. And then I went to the Tupperware Jubilee, which is the big Tupperware convention that they hold. Normally it's in Orlando, Florida, which is where the world headquarters is, but sometimes they move it around and everything. And I said, oh, well, this is fun. And I watch all these ladies get on stage, get recognized for all their accomplishments, all the sales they've done, and how big they've grown their organizations and everything. And I just watch them getting showered with praise and people cheering for them and everything. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be up on that stage getting people cheering at me, because normally like the most thing anybody had ever done for me is like throw, you know, quarters and stuff. Like I was from a really poor area of town, so like people didn't even throw dollars if you're swinging around a pole. They throw quarters, which tends to leave a mark, you know. And so I just thought, no, I want somebody throwing praise and love at me. And so I started doing Tupperware parties, and I made the determination I was going to be the #1 selling Tupperware lady in the entire United States and Canada, and get up on that stage. And dang it, if I didn't do that exact thing, I became the top selling Tupperware lady in the whole United States and Canada, which I didn't even know they had foods in a part of Canada, and they do. They do. I got so excited about Tupperware because of all the ideas about you can make your own money, you can run your own business and everything. And then I was doing I was doing parties, and then I started finding what was so interesting to me is I would talk to people. I get to the parties a little bit earlier. I talked to the people I was setting up. You know, there's always the host and a couple of the host's friends just milling about, and I would talk to them. And I'd be like, oh, you know, they'd ask about me, and I'd tell my story and where I'm from, what I do. And then I'd say, well, tell me about you. And they'd always say, well, my husband works for this company. And I'd say, okay, but well, tell me about you. And they said, well, I have 2 kids. One's in ballet and one's in soccer. And I noticed that so many of these ladies were talking about themselves through other people. And without even realizing it, they sort of were forgetting that they were their own person. They had their own identity. And I said, you know, I want to sit down and I want to write a show. I want to come up with something that really celebrates these women and sort of gets them to understand that they're better than they're giving themselves credit for, that they deserve to be celebrated. And so when I sat down, I said, I'm going to write myself a show based on this Tupperware party experience and see what I can do with it. But I wanted to make it a love letter for all the ladies that have come to the Tupperware parties and all the ladies before them. And so what was so fascinating, because a lot of people don't realize this, when Tupperware got started, it was created by Earl Tupper, and he was an inventor, and he created these plastic bowls, and it was nobody had ever seen anything like that in the consumer world before. Bowls up to that point were like either metal or they were ceramic dishes and stuff. If you drop them, they would break, and you know, it's just, you couldn't keep things fresh. You put wax paper over it to keep things fresh. But he came up with this idea. He made these plastic bowls, and then he made a lid based on the idea of a paint can, because if you get like paint stays fresh forever in a paint can. And he's like, how do they do that? So he like studied the paint can lid, and he used that as the basis for the Tupperware seal, and it was able to lock in the freshness of the food so much longer. So it was such a crazy great thing, but it was sitting on store shelves and nobody was investigating it, so they weren't selling. And then a woman named Brownie Wise got a set of plastic bowls, and she was so blown away by them. She thought they were the greatest things, and she said, you need to demonstrate these things. People need to see how they work in order to get excited about them. And she had worked for a company called Stanley Home Products. So she would go door to door and sell different products. And she said, if I can take these and do them door to door, but let me do it even better. Let me take them into people's living rooms. Let me make a party out of it. And let me show people how they are used, and show the people who will use them. Let me show the housewives who will use them, why they're so great and how they save money using them. And then maybe I can recruit a bunch of people to sell them with me. And so she started doing that. She was selling more Tupperware than any of the retail outlets. It turned out around the entire country. So Earl Tupper is like, why? How does this? How's this happening? What is this lady doing? So he flew her down to Orlando, talked to her. She told him, I created this party, and these women want to buy it at the party when they see how great it is. So he pulled it off of all the store shelves in the entire country, made her the vice president of Tupperware and created the home party division. And she was the reason that it became so successful. This lady came out and she created all this stuff, and she supported all these women who were there selling it with her. And she became this real icon in the business. I'm sorry, I got a little frog in there. And she became this icon in the business world. And Business Week magazine flew down to do a story on this emerging plastics company. And they were so taken by her. They said, I want to talk to her. They did a whole story about her. Turns out she was the first woman ever on the cover of Business Week magazine, all because of Tupperware. And so to me, I was always fascinated by that story when I found out about it. And I was like, this is a great story about women and the celebration of women and the power of women. Because prior to that, women were, they were sort of shoved into the kitchen. Then the war happened, and then they all became Rosie the Riveter. They all had these, these things that they were doing for their country. They were being empowered. They were working. They were doing something really wonderful and patriotic. And then after the war, they were just thrown back into the kitchen like they were not useful. And what I loved about Tupperware is she was able to get these same women to go back out and say, no, I am useful. I do have a reason. I do have a purpose, and be bigger members of their family, bigger members of their community, be able to make their own money. And so that's why I was so fascinated by what she did. And so I said, I want to celebrate her. And at the same time, I want to celebrate all these unsung women around the world that sort of think of themselves as, oh, I'm just a housewife. Oh, I just have, I live my identity through other people. So that's why I became so obsessed with it, and then wanted to tell that story. I have so many pieces of Tupperware that I love that I use all the time. First of all, my wine opener, I'm never too far away from my wine opener, because, you like when you're drinking, you're like, oh, I'm parched. And then you got to reach to the pistache wine that you have in the back and then put it up in the front seat. The hardest thing to do is when you can't open that wine bottle. And it's a really bad form to use your teeth to open it. And so I thought, let me put my wine bottle right there in the glove box, next to the gloves. Who knew? And then I'd take it, and then I could open a wine bottle. And before that red light turns green, I'm drinking a bottle of wine. It is the nicest thing, especially in the summer months when it gets so hot outside and you just get so parched. I love that. And then, of course, if I open a bottle of wine, I don't want to drink straight out of the bottle because, that's frowned on. Whatever. And so I put it in my Tupperware tumbler, my sippy cup, which is amazing. Some people are like, oh, it's just for children's. Shush. Okay, we have these 16-ounce tumblers that are the best thing that's ever happened to anybody. And on the top of them is this little hole that you can stick the straw in, because when there's a hole, you got to stick it in, and then you can pull it out, and then it seals all up. And then you're like, oh, my Lord, it's sealed up. So that, like, if you spill it or turn it over, it's not going to drip out. How many times has happened to you? You're driving down the street and you run over like a baby or whatever, and you're like, oh no, I spilled my drink. You already got to clean the front of the car to get the baby out. But then you also have to be like, oh no, I got to clean the inside of my car because I spilled my drink. This way, you don't got to worry about that, because that spill-proof tumbler stays sealed up like that. It's the nicest thing in the world. I love it. I will take it up with me when I go to church. When they say, oh, it's time for shots for Jesus, and then you walk up to the front of the church, and then the reverend has that, big old carton of wine, that box, and he's like, oh, this is Jesus or whatever, and puts it in but he puts in these little shot glasses. And I'm like, no, first of all, shots are for the bar. They're not for church. And second of all, I read my Bible. Jesus was 6'2". He bled a hell of a lot more than that. Like, fill that up. So I take my tumbler up with me, and then I just let him fill it up. And then he don't have to come back for refills, because it's always so bad when you're sitting there, at the church, and you're like, oh, still thirsty. And then he's already gone around, the reverend has to the other side of it. And you're like, come back, because then he pretends like he don't see you when you're like, over here, and he does see me. Like, I don't make enough noise that it's distracting, but I make enough noise that he can definitely hear me. And then he pretends not to. And then that's just awkward, And so that way I'm just like, bring my sippy cup up and fill it up. It's fine. It's just, okay, just fill it. So, that's what I do. And so that's what I have, this Jello shot caddy that is so, well, Tupperware says you're supposed to put cupcakes on it. I put 34 Jello shots on it. Let me tell you something. If you're going somewhere nice, like the principal's office or whatever, because you got to call because, oh, you're not supposed to, your son keeps getting in fights and, you know, you're not supposed to throw kids in the dumpster, whatever. Okay. So what you do is you come to apologize when the principal calls you up. But if you walk in with gel shots on your hand, that principal will let your child off the hook every single time. I just walk in and I'm like, living a maid, refreshments, you know, and then they put them in. Now, I will caution you, you shouldn't make those, like if you're in charge of refreshments for like the PTA, they frown on that. Or if you are doing, you know, the carnival that they do at the end of the school year every year, and they're like, oh, you're in charge of refreshments, and then you bring jello shots, they get super moody. And they're like, you're not supposed to bring alcohol to school grounds. I was like, wow, that's fine. And they're like, why did you make the kind of jello shots with alcohol in it? And I'm like, because I don't know the recipe for the kind without the alcohol in it. Duh. And so that's why I bought them. But I put them on my jello shot container caddy, and it's the best thing. That is also, by the way, something you can bring to church, because, you know, you can get thirsty at church. Like when you're sitting to go up for communion and you're like, you know, trying to get your motor running, just start drinking them, like just jello shot right there. Especially if like you get to church late and so all that's available are like the pews in the back. You know, that's what you should do. So I like those are awesome. My can opener is one of the best things that ever happened to anybody in the world. I can open a can with no sharp edges, lickety split. It's the best thing ever. And that thing is hefty. I can hit somebody at the ATM that's trying to give me problems, you know. So there's all kinds of great crap at Tupperware. A lot of people think Tupperware is just like for old ladies, or it's the same as it always has been since your Mima had it. It has changed so much. It has grown so much to be able to keep up with the changing times and make schedules convenient. Because yeah, some people are like, oh, I'm busy, I got to go out and have, you know, sex behind the dumpster or whatever, and you don't always have time. Well, Tupperware, it makes you be able to have so much more time in your life because you can cook effectively, you can store things effectively, you don't have to throw food away. It's amazing. It's the best thing in the world. So I started selling Tupperware, like I said, and then I was doing it for a while. I went and became the top seller in the entire United States and Canada. And then I thought, you know, the story that I've been thinking about, I want to put this to more people, and not just in somebody's living room. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a director for theater, and he said, you should do this as a play. And I'm like, shut up, you know. And then he said, no, do it. And so we worked on it together, took it up to New York as part of this theater festival. Got a lot of attention there, which was so nice. And then ended up getting moved off Broadway, developed it for a couple of years, moved it off Broadway. And then, so in 2007, it had its off Broadway run. I called it a Dixie's Tupperware Party, so it's not to be confusing, you know. And then, and it went so good and got so much attention, then that led to a tour. And that tour is it was on the road. They said, oh, you'll probably get like a year, maybe 2 years out of it. 12 stinking years later, it was still running. And if it hadn't been for coronavirus, I would still be running today, but it shut it down. So, you know, like everything else. So I said, oh, I guess food storage, you know, it's going to be a commodity coming up. So I've been doing, in the meantime, I've been doing little things where I've been doing like private events and Tupperware parties and fundraisers online to be able to help people out. I've been doing this whole time. So I've been using the social technology and everything to be able to be in people's homes without, you know, you having to get the restraining order removed and everything. So it's really good. So, and that was just like an accidental lucky thing. I never thought I'd be doing it as a show. I never thought I'd be traveling the world with it. My show's been in 5 different countries, in places that I didn't even know spoke English. You know, it's been all over the place. It's been translated. They got translated into Portuguese, and they did it in South America. And I was like, stop it, I can't stand it. Like I actually went to see it. I got to fly down to see it, and I was like, I don't know what they're saying. But they kept picking up bowls and everything. So I'm like, yay, Tupperware. And it was so stinking fun. I had such a good time. But yeah, and so it just sort of grew faster than I expected it to. I'd never had any intention of doing it that way, but it just, you know, the ideas just kept sort of rolling and rolling. And people were like, oh, do this. And then you should come to my theater, and then do this. And why are you still under the dumpster? And you got to leave before my wife comes home. You know, all the things that people just say in passing. It's sort of like that. And I've had a great time. It's been such a rewarding experience being, you know, in theaters all over the country, in meeting people all over the world. It's been really wonderful. When people come to Dixie's Tupperware Party, at first people don't know what to expect. It is a Tupperware party on stage. There's games and prizes and raffles. I get people up to help me with different demos and stuff. But the whole thing is, the show is basically a Tupperware party on stage, but it's an allegory. I look at it like this. It's a story about women's empowerment, all told through Tupperware. So I detail a bit about Brownie Wise, the woman who created the Tupperware party. I talk about some of the ladies in the audience inspiring and empower them through that story. But it's all with Tupperware. And every piece of Tupperware I pick up, it reminds me of something. I talk about how it's used, but of course I spin stories and talk about the different stories. So it's not just me sitting there pitching crap all night long. It's me just like sharing stories and making people giggle and empowering them a little bit to be able to go out into the world and kick some of their own butt, because I relate everybody in the audience to those ladies who were the first Tupperware ladies who went out. And, and the first time they had, a lot of them left their cities that they've been living in forever. Their husbands left their jobs. They moved to different cities so they could establish a whole Tupperware, like a little center in each city that would sell Tupperware, that would be kind of like the regional headquarters for this new thing back in the day. And so I sort of celebrate that and sort of celebrate the idea of picking yourself up for your bootstraps and doing something amazing with your life that you didn't think was possible. I hope audiences get but not just Dixie's Tupperware Party, but all my shows that I do. I really want to inspire the audience to, I want to leave them laughing, but I also want to leave them with a message of hope and excitement and optimism for the future and what they can do in the world, because I think we're so lucky to be here. The odds of being here at all are so low. The odds of, I talk about this in my new show, Dixie's Happy Hour. Like, we're the swimmers that won, I say. Like, there are how many, little wiggly guys go out toward that egg, and we're the ones that are here. And so it's like, okay, well, we beat the law of averages right there. So with that, it's an opportunity to go, what is possible? What can you do? What do you have the capability of doing? And how can you not only do something great for yourself, but also improve and inspire the world in doing something great for yourself? And so all of my shows always have that message of empowerment and going out into the world with a bigger smile on your face and doing something that's going to lift everybody up around you a little bit. I love doing the Tupperware parties because it's just fun. And I get to be with so many people and see so many people smile and hear so many people's stories. And I think, I think people galvanize to me because I'm like anybody else. I'm just, somebody dealing with my own set of circumstances. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I've been married 3 times. I got 3 kids, trying to go through my struggles in life just like everybody else. But I'm trying to find optimism through everything that I'm going through. And I think that's why people galvanize to me in my stories a little bit, because they see me as, she's just like us. She's just going through her day to day, trying to figure out the best way to get through it and hopefully put a smile on people's face, hopefully inspire myself to do better each day, and hopefully sit down and hit the ground running in the morning in a way that is going to make my day better, and then everybody I come in contact make their days better a little bit. And so I think people galvanize to the show and sort of are excited by coming to it because they see a little bit of themselves, what's possible if you just kind of focus on the good things, because there are so many bad things taking our attention right now. And so we can get mired down in that so easy, but it's about finding the ways to find the good pieces that are in front of you that you might not see right away, but they're there. You just have to switch your focus a little bit to see if you can find them. So when the shutdown happened, everybody's scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. Like, my last show was March 14th of 2020. And I was supposed to go from that show just right to the next show. I had all these shows signed up, and then everything one by one just started falling out. And I thought, all right, well, I'm going to be home. So let me see what I can do. And at first I was doing what everybody else was doing. I was just getting online, talking to friends. And then I'd be like, all right, let's do a happy hour every afternoon. So I would get some cocktails out. I'd make some cocktails and do it. And then I started just making cocktails online on my social media and said, oh, check in with me. Let me just see how you're doing. Hope you're doing well. I know it's a crazy time. Let me see if I can encourage you and make you smile a little bit. And as I kept doing that and that started growing, I thought, let me take my idea of just having a happy hour, but let me expand it and let me write it into a full show. So I wrote a show called Dixie's Happy Hour, and I contacted a bunch of theaters and I said, listen, I have an idea for this show. If I write this show and make it a whole show, now it's not just going to be me online, just, making drinks, but if I write a whole show, would y'all want to partner with me? And my idea was that because all the theaters are closed and there's no ticket revenue coming in, and because I've been on the road for so many years, a lot of these people that work in these theaters have become friends of mine, and a lot of them are being laid off, being furloughed, and that's breaking my heart. And I'm like, well, if I can do something that's going to put a little bit of money back in the coffers of the theater, well, then good. Then I'm doing something good. So let me take this opportunity to do that. So I contacted a bunch of theaters. There was an overwhelming sense of support. I said, yes, let's do it. And I contacted a streaming company and I said, can we do this and launch it it and work together and see about getting it out to all these different theaters at the same time? And they said yes. And so I contacted a local theater here and I said, listen, can I film a show in your theater? We built a set. We put it all together. We filmed it in there. It looks gorgeous. It's a 3-camera HD shoot. It's real good. And because one thing that I really wanted to do with it is I wanted to do it a little different than what a lot of people are doing right now, which is just like doing Zoom things and shooting stuff from their house and everything. And I said, no, I want to do this like a proper theatrical show. So everything is direct to camera. It doesn't look like I filmed it like with an audience in there. There's no audience in there. I'm talking directly to the camera the whole time because I want you to feel like you're in the room with me. And so I wrote this, I put it all together, and it's about the 4 basic food groups: rum, gin, vodka, and tequila. And they're placed in your otherwise busy schedule. But it's also about finding the happy hours that are right in front of you that you might be missing right now, because everybody's lives have changed so drastically over this last year. It's like, I get it. People are overwhelmed, but there's a lot of good that's happening right now. If you just take a minute and breathe and look for it, there's stuff that's truly magical that's right in front of you. And so that's what I'm sort of asking people to take stock in themselves and see who they really are. Because the one thing that I will say is the entire population of the world has had the rug pulled out from under them. Yet we're all being forced to adapt, but we've all adapted. That's the thing that I think people forget so much is like, as everybody's struggling, people are like, no, we've adapted. We've been forced to adapt and we've done it. And I think that really speaks to the resilience of the human spirit and how we are able to take something and make lemons out of lemonade. And I wanted to be able to communicate that in the show. And so I wrote this show, and it's basically me making drinks like I would do at my happy hours online. But then every drink I make relates to a story. And then I start telling these stories, and then each story kind of winds around. And at the end, it all ties up into like each story intersects and meets and talks about how you can find happy hours. If you just really, squint a little bit and change your focus, you're going to find some great happy hours that are in front of you might be missing. Well, I am real good at drinking. Like if I could get a PhD in drinking, I would have already had like 4 of them by now. I like finding new kinds of ways to drink things. I'm a big fan of the margarita. I'm a big fan of vodka and just about anything. Look, you can give me some rum and put some fruit juices in it, and I'll be like, oh my Lord, that's the best thing I've ever had in my mouth. Until the next thing I have in my mouth, which is even better than that. So I am a big fan of all kinds of things. And one of the things I've been doing during this time off is I've been looking online and finding different great cocktail recipes. There's tons of stuff online. I didn't even know you know that, but there you can find so many great cocktail recipes online. So I've been trying different ones out. Like I go to the Piggly Wiggly. They got the big one, not the one that's in the mall, but the one that's down the street a piece. And there is they have such a good liquor department. And there's Wilbur Cordell, who used to work in the liquor department, and we know each other well. That's all you need to know. You don't need to ask any questions about that. But and so he was able to order some special stuff for me, like because I'd be like, "Ooh, I need something that I don't normally see you carrying here," because it's not beer. And so he's like, okay, well, I'll get it for you. And then he would bring it in. And so I was able to get all kinds of different things that are you'd only find in fancy liquor stores up north, And so I just kept getting different stuff and trying it. And so for me, and there's nothing better than a breakfast vodka. Something to wake you up in the morning because, coffee is expensive and the acid in it can just rot you. So I don't like it. So I just always think like a breakfast vodka is fantastic to have with you at any time, any time of day. It's like brunch. You can have a breakfast vodka any time of day. And there's all kinds of different things that I like so much. So there's not one that I settle on. Like if somebody hands me a cocktail, I'll be like, I'll try it. Because I'm a giver. I'm a giver. It's called diversity. That's what we should be working toward these days anyway. So this show, and I don't know if I mentioned it. So the one thing about this show that I'm really excited about is this show is the fundraiser for the theater. So 80% of the ticket sales are going to go to the theater to support them. And so, and the rest of the money goes to just basically cover the cost of streaming it and getting it, all the infrastructure that I need to deliver it to the people that are buying the tickets for it. But my whole hope is that this really supports the art centers. And what I hope is, I really hope people take a minute to just find the happy hours that are there. Find great moments that they might otherwise be missing. Like take a breath every morning when your feet hit the floor and go, okay, what's good about my life? What's good about today? What can I do successfully today? Even if it's a little thing, so that when my head hits the pillow at the end of the day, I feel satisfied that I did something good. Who can I connect with? What can I do? What sort of thing can I create? So because I think everybody has their amazing things that they do and who they are. And sometimes you just have to sort of nudge them and encourage them and inspire them a little to remember that about themselves. Because I think people are better than they give themselves credit for. And my hope is that people just start giving themselves some credit. And so that's what I hope people leave my show feeling, like they find their little inner superhero. Now, in the show, I make 4 different cocktails. I always recommend having a cocktail handy. Now, I make them kind of quickly through the show, but so I don't I go through the recipe. I tell you what it is, but my recommendation is that prior to the show, what you can do is you can get if you go, you can go onto YouTube and you can just type in my name, Dixie Longate, and you'll be able to type in tequila, and then a margarita drink will pop up. So I go through and make a proper margarita. I go through the whole process, what you're gonna need, the ingredients, and everything like that, so that you can practice it prior to the show, so that you can come to the show prepared. You can type in my name and some different alcohols, and I'll pop up. So I'm working on all them videos right now, which is it's so hard to do because I have to keep drinking until I get it right. It's hard to be me, but this way, yeah, that way you can prepare. So when you come to the show, you're going to be drinking. Because the thing about the show is it's like an event. So when you buy your ticket, let's say you buy your ticket for Friday at 8:00, that's when the show is. This is not like a video on demand. It's not like something you can pause and come back to later. Oh, I gotta make tea. I gotta go to the outhouse. No, you can't do it because you won't miss it. Because I wanted it to be just like going to the theater again. You buy a ticket for a specific show date and time, that's when you're gonna go to the theater. So my recommendation is, just as you would do it at the theater, you're gonna go before, you're gonna get your drink. You're going to get a little snack, you can unwrap your candy, whatever, and then you can join me for happy hour and at the same time. And so one of the things I'm suggesting to people, because obviously theater is a shared experience. So because a lot of people can't necessarily get together right now, I say, okay, do this. Have a bunch of your friends. I'll get tickets for the same performance. All right. Then come on an hour before on Zoom, do your own happy hour on Zoom where you're all having drinks, talking and catching up. And then y'all watch the show from your various locations and then get back on Zoom afterward and talk about, the drinks you made, the things you learned, and maybe talk about some of the happy hours that you're going to be looking for now that you've kind of been pushed and inspired a little bit. And then that way you can hold each other accountable. You can hold each other, be like, well, you're looking for that happy hour, that great thing about you. Well, I'm going to be there to support you every stitch of the way. That's what I hope happens. I hope everybody can, even though we're separated, they can all have a collective theatrical experience, because that's part of what is great about theater. During this time when everything's shut down, theaters it's so important. A theater is the heartbeat of the city. And when you take out the events that they do, the shows that they do, the great things that they bring to you, the entertainment, when it's gone, you can really feel that it's missing. And so my fear is the longer this goes on, the theaters, it's harder and harder for them to survive. And the longer it happens that they can't do theaters, that they can't present stuff, they can't present shows, the harder it's going to be for them to get back up. And I know a lot of them are going to end up closing, and that breaks my heart, because people have given their blood, sweat, and tears and everything to be able to make these theaters work and to give great entertainment to you over and over and over again for so many years. And so my hope is that this show, even if it's in some small way, can bring a little bit of money back into the theater to be able to keep the doors open for when live entertainment can come back in the very near future. But that only happens with stuff like this, with shows like this that can give back to the theater that people get excited about, and my hope is not just my show. Always go to your local theater, your local art center, and look at what they're doing, because right now a lot of people, they're looking for things for fun and things to carry themselves through it. And a lot of people are like, oh, I sort of forgot my theater because, the Wicked isn't here and Hamilton isn't here. I'm not thinking about it. But if you go to the art centers and theaters websites and just look at the stuff that they're creating right now and the content they're trying to get out to keep everybody entertained, there's a lot of stuff that they're working on and doing that's really creative and unique and fun. And so my challenge to everybody is go to the art centers websites, go to the theaters websites, and look at how you can support them and see the kind of stuff that they're creating right now, because it's so important to be able to support them now, so that when all of this is open, over and the theaters are open again, there's going to be a theater to go back to. when all theaters open again, I will be back on the road for at least a little bit. You know, I had all these shows lined up and then they all had to move. So I have a bunch of them now that are sort of tentatively locked into place on calendar, and it's all just going to be determined by when things can open up and how things are going to roll out again. If they're going to stick when they're in the calendar, they might keep pushing back a little bit, but you know, I'll be right back out there doing my best to make people smile, because I think at the end of this, people are going to want to go out and have, you know, collective experience, shared experience, have fun with each other again. And I think that is you know, theater is a great place for that, a great forum for that. So my hope is that hopefully that's soon, but in the meantime, I'm doing what I can to keep people smiling until the doors are open again. But I'll be back. I'm like a rash that I've got a salve for. I keep popping up even if you don't want me to. I know that people need to watch the show, because not only is it going to be fun, not only is it going to be inspiring, not only are you going to learn a couple of cocktail recipes to be able to wow and dazzle your friends and your elderly loved ones, but it's going to be an opportunity for you to take stock in yourself and find your inner superhero and find that little thing that makes you sparkle. And I think right now we need that more than ever. Sometimes we just need a personal encouragement. And my hope is that this show will give you a little bit of personal encouragement to find your inner rock star. That's my hope. That's what I wrote it about. That's what I mean, I've been lucky enough to have so much support in my life from, you know, my loved ones and my friends. And so my hope is that I can push that a little bit forward to everybody to be able to find the same thing in themselves. I hope you kids had some fun chatting with me today. My name is Dixie Longate, and if you want to see my new show, Dixie's Happy Hour, so simple. Go to dixieshappyhour.com, and then there's a link on there for the tickets. Now, you can see all the information about the show, but the tickets link is always updating. So as new theaters come on, you're going to see the new theaters and when they're selling tickets. So it's all about in the date. So the first theaters that are listed are the ones that are selling right now or have the show actively running, and you can scroll down and find some theater in your local area. If you have friends that you always wanted to go to the theater with, but you didn't even go to the theater with them, you can inspire them and encourage them to see one of the shows at the same day that you are. And that will make you even closer, because isn't it fun to drink with your grandma? Like, you know how sometimes your grandma's in like an old folks home and she's like, oh, I'm bored. All right, grandma, don't play canasta anymore. You can see Dixie's Happy Hour with me, and then we can drink till you fall over. It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, you can go there, Dixie's Happy Hour. You can always find me all over social media. Just look for me at Dixie Longate, Dixie. It just sort of rolls off the tongue. And you can find me, and I'm going to be there talking about all the things coming up. And when my other show, Dixie's Happy Hour, is live again, and I'm going to be able to go back on the road, I'll be talking about it all over the social media. So if you follow me on them platforms, then you'll be able to you're not going to miss a beat. I won't let you. It's like I'm going to come to your door and be like, hey, I'm here. And that's important.